Park Jiho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the environmental controls in the embassy's main hall. The air conditioning system had been acting up all week, and of course, it chose tonight to malfunction completely. Tonight, when Earth was hosting its first major diplomatic reception since joining the Galactic Coalition, hundreds of alien dignitaries filled the massive room, their various forms creating a bizarre tapestry of colors, shapes, and sizes that still amaze Jiho even after 6 months of working here. He was just an engineer. He fixed things. He wasn't supposed to be here among ambassadors and royalty, but someone had to keep the environmental systems running, and that someone was him. The air needed to be perfect for species that breathed everything from methane to pure oxygen. One wrong adjustment could kill half the room. Jiho squeezed through the crowd, trying to reach the control panel on the far wall. Aliens towered over him, some twice his height. Others floated or skittered on multiple legs. He was used to feeling small. Humans were newcomers to the galaxy, and compared to most species, they were physically weak. The galaxy had made that very clear during Earth's integration period. Near the center of the hall, Jiho noticed a commotion. A group of aliens had gathered in a circle, and their body language suggested trouble. He should have kept walking. He should have focused on his job. But curiosity got the better of him, and he edged closer to see what was happening. At the center of the circle was a hovering platform, elegant and silver. On it sat a female alien, unlike any Jiho had seen before. She had a humanoid form, but her skin seemed to shimmer with an inner light, like crystal catching the sun. Her features were delicate and sharp, and her eyes glowed with a soft blue luminescence. Long, flowing robes covered her body, but Jiho noticed immediately that she wasn't standing. The platform wasn't decorative. It was supporting her. A large reptilian alien stood in front of her, his scales a deep red. He was laughing loud and cruel. "Look at the broken princes," he said in the common galactic language that Jiho's translator implant converted to Korean. The mighty Valarians reduced to this. "Tell me, Princess Hana, does your father keep you as a pet now? A reminder of past glory?" The other aliens shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. No one spoke up. The princess, Hana, kept her expression neutral, but Jiho saw her hands tighten on the armrests of her platform. Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly. She said nothing. "What's the matter?" The reptilian alien continued. "Can't stand up for yourself?" He laughed at his own joke. Several others joined in nervously. Jiho felt something hot rise in his chest. He knew what bullying looked like. He'd seen it his whole life, and he'd always hated people who picked on those who couldn't fight back. Before his brain could stop his mouth, he spoke up. "That's funny coming from someone who needs to insult disabled people to feel strong," Jiho said loudly. His voice cut through the laughter. "On Earth, we have a word for beings like you. Coward." The hall went silent. Every eye turned toward Jiho. The reptilian alien's face darkened with rage. He turned slowly, his massive form towering over Jiho's modest height. "What did you say, human?" His voice was low and dangerous. Jiho's heart pounded, but he held his ground. "I said you're a coward. Mocking someone for something they can't control? That's the weakest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot working here." The alien took a step forward. Jiho was sure he was about to die. Then a voice stopped everything. "Enough." Princess Hana's voice was soft but carried absolute authority. She guided her platform forward until she was between Jiho and the reptilian alien. "Ambassador Wrath, you forget yourself. This human has more honor in his words than you've shown in your entire presence here tonight." Ambassador Wrath backed down, but his eyes promised violence later. He bowed stiffly and retreated into the crowd. Hana turned her platform to face Jiho. Up close, she was even more striking. Her eyes studied him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. What is your name, human? Park Jiho, Your Highness. I'm just an engineer here. I apologize if I caused a problem. You defended my honor, she said quietly. The crowd around them had grown larger, watching with interest. Jiho noticed several aliens whispering to each other urgently. Do you know what that means in Valerian culture? Jiho's stomach dropped. No, Your Highness. I don't. A small smile played at the corner of her lips. It was the first emotion he'd seen on her face. It creates a soul bond marker, a sign that our spirits have recognized each other. She paused, and her eyes seemed to glow brighter. I declare before these witnesses that Park Jiho of Earth is my chosen mate. By the laws of Valeria and the Galactic Coalition, this bond is recognized and binding. The room exploded into shocked murmurs. Jiho felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. Wait, what? I don't understand, but Hannah wasn't finished. She raised her hand, and a symbol appeared above her palm, glowing with blue light. It drifted toward Jiho and touched his chest, sinking into his skin. He felt a warmth spread through him, and then a presence at the edge of his mind. Not intrusive, just there, waiting. The declaration is made, Hannah announced. Any who wish to challenge it must do so through ritual combat within 7 days. An older alien in elaborate robes pushed through the crowd. His features were similar to Hannah's, the more masculine and harder. Hannah, what have you done? He demanded. This human? A mate bond? Your father will have both your heads for this. Then let him try, Brother Doyen, Hannah said calmly. The law is clear. The bond is declared. It cannot be undone except through challenge or completion. Diane looked at Jiho with a mixture of pity and disgust. Human, do you have any idea what you've gotten yourself into? Jiho's mind was racing. Everything had happened so fast. One moment he was fixing air conditioning. The next he was apparently engaged to an alien princess. Not really, no, he admitted. The proving trials, Doyen said. To complete a mate bond with Valerian royalty, you must survive 3 trials designed for our greatest warriors. If you refuse the trials, my sister will be executed for making a false bond claim. If you accept and fail, you die, and she's executed anyway. The survival rate is roughly 30%. For a human? He shook his head. You have no chance. Jiho stared at Princess Hannah. She met his gaze steadily. There was no apology in her eyes, but there was something else. Hope, maybe? Or desperation. Why? Jiho asked her. Why me? Because when you spoke, Hannah said quietly, you were the first person in 2 years to see me as someone worth defending, not as a broken thing to be pitied or hidden away. Everyone else looks at me and sees my disability. You looked at me and saw a person being mistreated. That is rare, Park Jiho, especially in my world. The crowd was still watching. Jiho could feel hundreds of eyes on him. He thought about walking away, about refusing this insane situation. But then he thought about what would happen to her if he did. Execution. Because she'd seen kindness in him and had grabbed onto it like a lifeline. I need time to think. Jiho said finally. You have 7 days, Hannah replied. I will not blame you if you refuse. I knew the risk when I made the declaration. But I hoped. She trailed off, then straightened in her platform. 7 days, Park Jiho. Then you must choose. She guided her platform away, her brother following while arguing in a language Jiho's translator couldn't catch. The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving Jiho standing alone in the middle of the hall. His communicator buzzed. It was his supervisor, demanding to know why the environmental controls still weren't fixed, and what the hell had just happened. Jiho looked at his hands. They were shaking. In 7 days, he had to decide whether to condemn someone to death or risk his own life in trials. He had no chance of surviving Dot, It was going to be a long week. The next 3 days passed in a blur of panic and confusion. Jiho couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Princess Hana's face and heard her brother's words about execution. He'd researched everything he could find about Valarian culture, the proving trials, and mate bonds. None of it made him feel better. The trials were brutal. Videos showed Valarian warriors fighting creatures from nightmare worlds, solving puzzles that broke lesser minds, and enduring physical challenges that would kill most species. Humans had never attempted the trials. No one knew if it was even possible for a human to survive. On the 4th day, Hana came to see him. Jiho was in his small apartment, staring at his computer screen filled with trial data when his door chimed. He opened it to find her hovering platform in the hallway. She was alone, without guards or attendants. Her luminescent eyes studied him carefully. "May I come in?" she asked. Jiho stepped aside. His apartment was tiny and cluttered with tools and spare parts. He hadn't expected royal visitors. "Sorry about the mess. I've lived in a palace my entire life," Hana said as she guided her platform inside. "Your honest chaos is refreshing." She looked around at the scattered belongings, the half-eaten meals, the general disorder of someone whose life had been turned upside down. "You've been researching the trials." It wasn't a question. Jiho nodded. "Trying to figure out if there's any possible way I could survive them." "And what have you concluded?" "That I'm gonna die if I try." Jiho sat down heavily on his couch. "The trials are designed for Valarian warriors who train their whole lives. I'm an engineer. I fix machines. I'm not a fighter." Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice soft. "I want to apologize." Jiho looked up, surprised. "For what?" "For putting you in this position. It was selfish of me." Hana's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. "I saw someone who treated me like a person, and I grabbed onto that without thinking about what it would cost you. That was wrong. Why did you really do it?" Jiho asked. "There has to be more to it than just me defending you." Hana was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I was going to die anyway." Jiho felt his chest tighten. "What do you mean?" "My injury happened 2 years ago," Hana explained. "There was an attack on the royal transport. My mother died. I survived but lost the use of my legs. In Valarian culture, physical perfection is tied to spiritual worth. A disabled royal is seen as cursed, weak, unfit to rule. My father has been trying to quietly remove me from the line of succession ever since." "That's insane," Jiho said. "You're obviously capable. Your disability doesn't change that. Try telling that to the Valarian High Court." Bitterness crept into Hana's voice. "They've been pressuring my father to have me declared unfit. The only thing stopping them is that I'm still legally his heir. But they're running out of patience. I estimate I have less than a year before they find an excuse to have me executed. Probably label it a mercy killing." Jiho felt sick. "So you made the mate bond declaration as what? A way out?" "As a chance," Hana corrected. "If you complete the trials, I become your bonded mate. That gives me protection under both Valarian and coalition law. They can't execute me without executing you, and killing a human diplomat would cause an interstellar incident. Earth would defend you. It buys me time to build support, to fight back against the court's prejudices. And if I refuse, then they'll execute me for making a false bond claim. I die either way." Hana met his eyes steadily. "But if you refuse, you get to live." "I don't want you to die for me, Park Jiho. You've already given me more than anyone else has. You saw me as a person. That's enough." Jiho stood and paced his small apartment. His mind was racing. "This is crazy. All of this is crazy. I'm just an engineer. I shouldn't be involved in alien politics and royal succession disputes." "You're right," Hana said. You shouldn't be, and I'm sorry for dragging you into it. I'll release you from the bond marker. I'll tell the court I made an error, that the bond wasn't true. You'll be free, and you'll die. Yes. Jiho stopped pacing. He looked at Hana, really looked at her. She sat straight on her platform, dignified even in the face of her own death. There was no self-pity in her expression, only acceptance. She'd already made peace with her fate. Tell me about yourself, Jiho said suddenly. Not the princess stuff. You. What do you like? What makes you happy? Hana blinked, surprised by the question. I don't understand. If I'm going to risk my life for you, I want to know who you actually are. Jiho sat back down, facing her. So tell me. A small smile touched Hana's lips. I love quantum mechanics. The way particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously, the uncertainty at the heart of reality. It's beautiful. I used to spend hours in the Royal Observatory studying stellar formations and calculating gravitational waves. You're a scientist? I was training to be one before the attack. My father thought it was a waste of time for a royal, but my mother encouraged it. She said understanding the universe made you a better leader. Hana's eyes grew distant. I miss her. She never saw my disability as a weakness. She said that overcoming challenges made us stronger, not weaker. She sounds wise. She was. Hana refocused on Jiho. What about you? Why did you become an engineer? Jiho shrugged. I like fixing things. Making stuff work that's broken. There's something satisfying about taking a problem and finding a solution. Plus, it paid for my university education. They talked for hours. Hana told him about growing up in the palace, about her brother Doyan, who she loved despite his ambition, about the weight of expectations and duty. Jiho told her about Earth, about his family who thought he was crazy for taking a job in space, about the first time he saw an alien and nearly fainted from shock. As the hours passed, Jiho realized something. He liked her, not as a princess or political puzzle, but as a person. She was funny, sharp-witted, and fiercely intelligent. She made jokes about her disability that were dark, but honest. She asked thoughtful questions and actually listened to his answers. When she finally prepared to leave, Jiho walked her to the door. Can I ask you something? Of course. If I do this, if I try the trials and somehow survive, what happens then? Are we actually bonded? Like, together forever? Hana considered the question carefully. The mate bond is permanent, yes. But what we make of it is up to us. Some Valorian bonds are purely political arrangements. Others are genuine partnerships. The bond itself is just a connection, a way for our minds to touch. What we build from that is our choice. That's not a no. No, it's not. Hana met his eyes. I won't lie to you, Park Jiho. If you complete the trials, we'll be bound for life. But I promise you this. I will never force you to be something you're not. I will never demand more than you're willing to give. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing to help me. Jiho took a deep breath. He thought about his safe, boring life as an engineer. He thought about walking away and letting this strange, brilliant woman face execution alone. He thought about the trials and the overwhelming likelihood that he'd die. Then he thought about his mother's voice from years ago, telling him that the measure of a person wasn't their strength or status, but whether they stood up when someone needed help. I need you to teach me everything about the trials, Jiho said. Every detail, every challenge, every trick that might help me survive. Hana's eyes widened. You're accepting? I'm going to try. Jiho felt terrified and alive at the same time. I'm going to fail, probably. But I can't just walk away and let you die. My mother would kill me. Plus, you're the most interesting person I've met since coming to space. It'd be a waste for the galaxy to lose you. For the first time since he'd met her, Hana smiled fully. It transformed her face, making her luminescence seem to glow brighter. "Thank you, Park Ji-ho. You have no idea what this means to me. I'm gonna die in your weird alien trials, aren't I?" "Probably," Hana admitted. "But I'll do everything in my power to make sure you don't." 2 days later, Ji-ho stood before the Valerian delegation and formally accepted the trials. Emperor Taiyang, Hana's father, looked at him with cold disdain. Prince Dian seemed almost sympathetic. The other Valerian nobles whispered among themselves, already placing bets on how quickly the human would die. Ji-ho ignored them all. He focused on Hana, who watched him with hope and fear in her glowing eyes. The first trial would begin in 3 days. Ji-ho had a lot of work to do. The crucible looked like something from a nightmare. A massive spherical chamber filled with swirling energy. It used advanced technology to create realistic combat simulations. Ji-ho stood at the entrance, trying to control his breathing. Around him, hundreds of aliens had gathered to watch. Most expected him to die within minutes. Hana floated beside him on her platform. The crucible will generate opponents based on Valerian military history. You'll face 3 champions in succession. Each one will be stronger than the last. You must defeat or survive all 3 to pass. Any advice? Ji-ho's mouth was dry. Yes, don't fight like a Valerian. They'll expect honor, direct combat, predictable warrior tactics. You're human. Use that. Hana's hand briefly touched his. Through the bomb marker, he felt her confidence in him. It helped more than he expected. Ji-ho stepped into the crucible. The entrance sealed behind him. Reality shifted, and suddenly he was standing in a barren landscape under a red sky. A figure materialized in front of him, a massive Valerian warrior in ancient armor, wielding a blade that crackled with energy. The warrior charged. Ji-ho dove sideways, barely avoiding a strike that would have cut him in half. He had no weapons, no armor, nothing but his wits. The warrior was faster and stronger in every way, but Ji-ho had spent the last 3 days studying everything he could about combat tactics. Not Valerian tactics, human tactics. Specifically, guerrilla warfare, asymmetric combat, and the art of winning when you're the underwaker opponent. He ran. The warrior chased him, contempt clear in every movement. Ji-ho led him in circles, making him waste energy. When the warrior's movements slowed slightly, Ji-ho spotted a rock formation. He climbed it quickly, using his smaller size to advantage. The warrior followed, but the heavy armor made climbing difficult. At the top, Ji-ho waited. When the warrior's head appeared, Ji-ho kicked loose rocks down. The warrior batted them away easily, but it gave Ji-ho time to jump to another formation. He kept moving, staying out of reach, forcing the warrior to chase him across the landscape. Hours passed. The warrior was tireless, but Ji-ho noticed patterns in his attacks. The same moves, the same approaches. He was a simulation based on historical records, which meant he was predictable. Ji-ho started anticipating strikes, dodging more efficiently. He found sharp rocks and threw them at the warrior's eyes. Not to hurt him, but to annoy and distract. Finally, Ji-ho spotted what he needed. A narrow canyon with unstable rock walls. He led the warrior there and ran through it. When the warrior followed, Ji-ho climbed the canyon wall and started dislodging rocks. The warrior realized too late what was happening. The canyon collapsed, burying him under tons of stone. The simulation reset. Ji-ho had survived the first champion. The second champion appeared immediately. This one was different. A smaller Valerian with twin blades who moved like lightning. Ji-ho barely had time to react before she was on him. He blocked with his arms and felt searing pain as the energy blades cut shallow wounds. He stumbled back, bleeding. This one wouldn't chase him. She was too fast, too smart. Jiho needed a different approach. He ran for a forest that had materialized in the landscape. The warrior followed, blades ready. Among the trees, Jiho grabbed branches, vines, anything he could use. He set crude traps, tripwires made from vines, deadfall branches balanced precariously. The warrior avoided most of them easily, but Jiho wasn't trying to hurt her with the traps. He was learning how she moved, where she looked, what she expected. He noticed she always moved to his right side, protecting an old injury simulation based on the historical warrior's real weakness. Jiho changed tactics. He stopped running and started moving deliberately, keeping obstacles on his right. When she attacked, he forced her to approach from her weaker side. It wasn't much of an advantage, but it was something. He used the environment, throwing dirt in her face, using trees as shields, staying unpredictable. The fight lasted for what felt like days. Jiho was exhausted, wounded, operating on pure survival instinct. But finally, he managed to get behind her when she overextended during an attack. He grabbed a heavy branch and struck the back of her head with every ounce of strength he had left. She fell down. 2 champions defeated. 1 to go. The third champion nearly killed him immediately. An enormous Valarian general who wielded no weapons because he didn't need them. His hands crackled with telepathic energy that could crush minds. He grabbed Jiho with his power and lifted him into the air. Jiho felt his consciousness starting to fracture. Through the bond marker, he felt Hana. She was terrified for him, but also sending him strength, her own telepathic power flowing through their connection. It wasn't much, but it was enough to clear his head for a moment. Jiho realized something. This champion was from an era before humans existed. The simulation had no data on human minds, on how humans resisted telepathic attacks. Jiho focused on his memories, on chaotic, random thoughts. He recited engineering formulas, song lyrics, random facts, anything to create mental noise. The general's grip faltered, confused by the human mind's strange structure. Jiho dropped to the ground and ran again. But this time, he ran with purpose. He'd noticed something during the fight. The general's telepathic power created visible distortions in the air. That meant it was energy, and energy could be redirected. Jiho led the general to a crystalline formation that had emerged in the landscape. When the general attacked with his telepathic power, Jiho dove behind the crystals. The energy struck them and reflected back, hitting the general. It wasn't enough to defeat him, but it stunned him. Jiho kept using the environment, turning the general's own power against him. It was exhausting and painful. The general adapted quickly, but Jiho was human. Humans specialized in adaptation. Every time the general changed tactics, Jiho found a counter. It wasn't elegant or honorable. It was desperate and messy, but it worked. Finally, after hours of combat, the general fell. Jiho collapsed beside him, barely conscious. The crucible dissolved. Jiho found himself back in the chamber, lying on the floor. Medical teams rushed forward. The crowd was silent, shocked. A human had survived the trial of courage. No one had expected that Hannah was beside him immediately, her platform lowering so she could reach him. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." Jiho managed a weak smile. "I'm never doing that again." "You have to." 2 more trials. "Let me die first." It seems easier. He spent 5 days recovering. His body was covered in wounds from the simulation. Hana stayed with him, and they talked about everything and nothing. The bond between them had strengthened during the trial. He could feel her presence more clearly now, a warmth in his mind that was becoming familiar. On the 6th day, Jiho entered the labyrinth of echoes for the trial of wisdom. This was a mental challenge, a maze that existed in thought rather than physical space. Participants had to navigate their own minds while solving impossible puzzles. Most people who failed this trial didn't die. They just went insane. Jiho closed his eyes and felt himself pulled into the labyrinth. He opened his eyes and found himself in his childhood home on Earth, but it was wrong. The walls breathed. His mother's voice called from another room, but when he tried to reach her, the hallway stretched infinitely. The labyrinth was designed to break him by showing his fears and regrets. Jiho saw himself failing his parents, dying alone in space, watching Hana be executed because he wasn't strong enough. He saw every mistake he'd ever made magnified into catastrophe. But Jiho had an advantage. He'd spent his whole life solving problems, thinking through challenges logically. He recognized that these were just visions, fears given form. Instead of fighting them, he acknowledged them. Yes, he was afraid. Yes, he might fail. But fear was just information, not truth. He started treating the labyrinth like a broken machine. Every fear, every vision was a malfunction to diagnose and fix. When he saw his mother disappointed in him, he remembered real conversations with her, grounding himself in true memories. When he saw himself failing, he reminded himself that he'd already survived one trial against impossible odds. The labyrinth threw harder, challenges at him. He saw Hana in pain, calling for help he couldn't provide. He saw himself trapped, unable to help anyone. But Jiho pushed through. He used logic, emotion, and pure stubborn refusal to give up. Hours or days later, he couldn't tell which. Jiho found the center of the labyrinth. There was a simple door. He opened it and saw himself on the other side. Not a vision or fear, just him. And he was okay. He woke up from the trial. Hana was there, as always. Tears ran down her luminescent face. 2 trials complete, she said. 1 more. The trial of devotion. Jiho sat up slowly. His body was healed, but his mind felt stretched thin. When? 3 days. Good. I need to sleep for at least 2 of them. But before he could rest, Hana gripped his hand. Jiho, there's something you need to know. Someone tried to sabotage your trial. The Crucible's difficulty was increased beyond standard levels. You should have faced opponents much weaker. Someone in the Valerian delegation wants you to fail. Jiho processed this information. Your brother? That would be logical. But I don't think so. Doyam gains nothing from my death now. The bond has already brought me allies. If I die, it would only create more problems for the succession. Hana's expression darkened. I think it's someone more powerful. Someone who has everything to lose if I succeed. Your father. I'm beginning to suss during the 2 days before the final trial. Hana worked tirelessly to gather evidence about the sabotage. She had allies now, other Valerians who were moved by Jiho's determination and who saw hope for change in her potential rise to power. One of them was Dr. Myray, an exiled scientist who had been cast out for challenging traditional Valerian beliefs about disability and weakness. Myray came to Jiho's quarters with equipment that looked both advanced and jury-rigged. She was older than most Valerians Jiho had met, her crystalline features dimmed with age, but her eyes sharp with intelligence. The trial of devotion will kill you, Myray said bluntly. Not because you're weak, but because humans lack telepathic abilities. The trial requires you and Princess Hana to merge your minds completely while navigating a shared psychic battlefield. Without telepathy, your consciousness will simply dissolve when you try to connect with hers. Jiho felt his stomach sink. So I can't complete it. Not naturally, no. But I've developed a neural bridge device that might work. It'll give you temporary telepathic capability by essentially piggybacking on Hana's own abilities through your bond marker. Myray held up a small device that looked like a metallic crown. I won't lie to you. This is experimental. It might not work. Or it might work too well and burn out your brain. There's no way to test it safely. What are my odds? Of surviving the device? 50-50. Of surviving the trial with the device? Still terrible, but at least possible. Marie's expression softened slightly. You're either very brave or very stupid human. Probably both, Jiho admitted. Over the next 2 days, Marie trained Jiho in basic mental discipline techniques. He learned to meditate, to quiet his thoughts, to reach for the bond connection with Hana and strengthen it. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done. His human mind kept wanting to fill silence with noise, but he slowly learned to just be present. Hana sat with him during these sessions. Through their connection, he began to understand her more deeply. He felt her fear, not just for herself, but for him. Her guilt about dragging him into this, her growing respect and affection for his determination. And he felt something else, something she tried to hide. The bone-deep exhaustion of someone who had been fighting alone for too long. On the night before the trial, Jiho and Hana sat together in his quarters. The bond between them had grown strong enough that they could share simple thoughts and emotions even without speaking. I need to tell you something, Hana said quietly. I've discovered who sabotaged your trials, your father. She looked surprised. How did you know? Process of elimination. And the fact that you look like someone whose world just collapsed. Jiho leaned back against the wall. Want to tell me why? Hana explained what she'd learned. 2 years ago, the attack that killed her mother and disabled her hadn't been random violence. It had been carefully planned. And the planning had come from within the palace. Her father, Emperor Taiyang, had arranged it. He wanted my mother gone, Hana said, her voice empty of emotion. She was too powerful, too independent. She challenged him. And I was too much like her. He wanted a controllable heir, which is why he pushed Doyun into position. The attack was supposed to kill me too, but I survived. That created a problem for him. So he's been trying to eliminate you ever since. Yes, and now that I have you, now that I have allies and hope, he's desperate. The final trial is broadcast to all of Velaria. It's a shared psychic experience that the entire Empire participates in. Everyone will be connected to the trial space, witnessing it. Hana met Jiho's eyes. If he's tampered with the trial, he'll have to be subtle. But he'll try something. And if we're not careful, he'll kill us both in front of the entire Empire and make it look like we failed the trial honestly. Jiho absorbed this information. You know, when I woke up a week ago, my biggest problem was a broken air conditioning unit. Despite everything, Hana smiled. Do you regret accepting the bond? Jiho thought about it honestly. I regret not knowing what I was getting into. I regret that we're both probably going to die tomorrow. But regret meeting you? No. You're the most interesting thing that's ever happened to me. Even counting the part where I might get you killed? Especially that part. Jiho reached out and took her hand. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. I'm glad I defended you that first night. And I'm glad I got to know you. You're brilliant and brave, and you deserve so much better than what your people have given you. Hana's luminescence brightened. Through their bond, Jiho felt a wave of emotion from her that was too complex to name. Gratitude, affection, hope, fear, all mixed together. Whatever happens tomorrow, Hana said, I want you to know that you've already given me more than I ever expected. You've shown me that I'm not broken or cursed, that I'm worth fighting for. No one has given me that in 2 years. Thank you, Park Jiho. They sat together in comfortable silence, hands linked, preparing for what might be their last day alive. The trial of devotion began at dawn. The chamber was filled with thousands of Velarians, all preparing to connect to the shared psychic space. Jiho stood at the center with Hana, the neural bridge device on his head. Dr. Mayray had activated it moments before, and Jiho felt a strange tingling in his skull. Emperor Taiyang presided over the ceremony, his expression cold and regal. Prince Doin stood beside him, looking worried. Around them, the Valarian court watched with various expressions of curiosity, contempt, and anticipation. "Let the trial of devotion begin," the emperor announced. The world shifted. Jiho felt his consciousness pulled into a space that wasn't physical. He stood on an endless plain under a sky of swirling colors. Beside him, Hana's presence was clear and strong. He could feel her thoughts, her emotions, everything that made her who she was. Around them, thousands of Valarian observers appeared as ghost-like figures watching. This was the psychic battlefield. He and Hana would face manifestations of their fears and doubts. If they wavered, if their trust in each other broke, they would both die. The first manifestation appeared. It was Jiho's mother, looking disappointed. "You're throwing your life away for a stranger," she said, "for alien politics that have nothing to do with you. I raised you better than this." Jiho felt the words cut deep. But through the bond, he felt Hana's presence beside him, steady and strong. "You're not my mother," he said to the manifestation. "You're my fear. And I'm done letting fear control me." The manifestation dissolved. Another appeared, this time targeting Hana. It was her mother, whole and healthy. "You let me die," the manifestation said. "You survived, and I didn't. You're selfish, broken, worthless." Hana's presence in the bond wavered. Jiho felt her pain, her guilt. But he also felt her strength. "I loved you," Hana said to the manifestation. "I still do. But you taught me that overcoming challenges makes us stronger. I'm still here. I'm still fighting. That's not weakness." The manifestation dissolved. They faced fear after fear, doubt after doubt. The trial grew more intense. Jiho saw Hana dying because he wasn't strong enough. Hana saw Jiho regretting ever meeting her. They saw themselves failing, being mocked, losing everything. But through it all, their bond held. Every time one of them wavered, the other was there. Jiho's stubborn refusal to give up balanced Hana's deep wells of inner strength. Her intelligence guided them when he was confused. His emotional honesty cut through her trained royal composure. Then something changed. The trial space flickered and warped. Jiho felt a presence that didn't belong, something foreign and hostile trying to corrupt the trial. Through the bond, Hana felt it too. "My father," she whispered in his mind. "He's interfering with the trial space." A new manifestation appeared, but this one was different. It was massive, overwhelming, a psychic construct designed to destroy them. Emperor Taiyang was trying to kill them while making it look like they failed the trial. But the emperor had made a mistake. The trial space was shared. Every Valarian connected to it could sense what was happening. They felt the foreign interference, the wrongness of it. And because Jiho and Hana's minds were merged, their memories were accessible to each other. As they fought the corrupt manifestation, their shared consciousness leaked into the broader trial space. The Valarian observers saw Hana's memories, her perspective on the attack 2 years ago. They saw evidence she'd gathered about her father's involvement. They saw his attempts to sabotage Jiho's trials. The truth spread through the psychic space like wildfire. Thousands of Valarians witnessed Emperor Taiyang's crimes in real time, seen through the eyes of his daughter in a space where deception was impossible. Jiho felt the Emperor's presence panic and withdraw. The corrupt manifestation fell apart. He and Hana stood together in the trial space, battered but alive. Around them, the ghost-like observers were in chaos, sharing what they'd witnessed. The trial space dissolved. Jiho and Hana returned to the physical chamber. The Valarians present were in an uproar. Emperor Taiyang stood frozen, realizing what had happened. His crimes had been broadcast to the entire empire. Through the bond, now permanently completed and sealed, Jiho felt Hana's determination crystallize into purpose. She guided her platform forward to face her father. "The trial is complete," she announced. "The bond is sealed, and everyone has written." The Valarian Empire fractured within hours of the trial's conclusion. News of Emperor Taiyang's crimes spread across every planet, every colony, every station. The psychic trial had been witnessed by millions, and there was no denying what they'd seen in Hana's memories. But knowing the truth and accepting it were different things. Traditional Valarians refused to believe their emperor could be guilty. They claimed the trial had been corrupted by the human's presence, that Jiho's alien mind had somehow poisoned the psychic space with false memories. They rallied behind Taiyang, declaring Hana a traitor who had conspired with an inferior species to steal the throne. Progressive Valarians saw opportunity for change. Hana's survival despite her disability, her partnership with a human, her exposure of corruption, all of it represented a break from rigid traditions they'd long opposed. They declared support for her claim to the throne. Jiho watched this all unfold from Hana's side, still processing the fact that he'd somehow survived all 3 trials. The bond between them was fully formed now, a constant presence in his mind. He could feel her emotions, sense her thoughts if she let him. It should have been invasive or uncomfortable, but instead it felt natural, like gaining a new sense he didn't know he'd been missing. "Civil war," Hana said quietly. They were in a secure room in the embassy, surrounded by guards from multiple species. "I've torn my empire apart." "Your father did that," Jiho corrected. "You just exposed it. The result is the same. Valarians will die because of this. Valarians were already dying because of the old system. At least now they have a chance for something better." Before Hana could respond, Prince Doyan entered the room. He looked exhausted, his crystalline features dimmed with stress. Behind him came several Valarian military officers wearing the insignia of the Imperial fleet. "Sister, we need to talk," Doyan said. "Father has locked himself in the palace with the Imperial Guard. He's declared you an outlaw and put a bounty on the human's head. Half the fleet supports him. The other half is waiting to see what we do. What do you suggest?" Hana asked. "Challenge him, formally, for the throne." Diane pulled up a holographic display showing ancient Valarian law. "If you invoke the right of challenge, he has to meet you in combat or forfeit the throne. It's the oldest law we have. Even his supporters can't deny it." "I can't fight," Hana said flatly. "My disability allows you a champion. Your bonded mate fights in your name." Doyan looked at Jiho. "The human would face our father in single combat. Winner takes the throne." Jiho's stomach dropped. "I just survived 3 trials that almost killed me. Now you want me to fight your father? Who is what? A trained warrior with decades of experience and telepathic powers." "Yes," Doyan said. "I know it's unfair. I know you're not a fighter. But it's the only legal path forward that doesn't end in prolonged civil war. Thousands will die if we do this the long way." Jiho looked at Hana. Through their bond, he felt her turmoil. She didn't want to risk him again. But she also knew Doyan was right. A formal challenge was their best option. "There's another problem," one of the military officers said. "Earth's government is debating whether to intervene. If they support Princess Hana, it could be seen as humanity trying to influence Valarian succession. But if they don't support her, they abandon one of their own citizens." As if summoned by those words, Admiral Song Yuna of Earth's coalition fleet appeared on a communication screen. She was a stern woman in her 50s who looked like she'd been dealing with politicians for too long. "Mr. Park," Admiral Yuna said, "I've been authorized to inform you that Earth officially recognizes Princess Hana's claim to the Valorian throne. We will provide military support if requested. Additionally, several hundred human soldiers have volunteered to join her forces." Jiho blinked in surprise. Why would humans fight in an alien civil war? Because you became a symbol, Admiral Yuna said. A human who stood up to a galaxy that sees us as weak. Who survived trials designed to kill him. Who chose honor and compassion over safety. The volunteers see you as proof that humanity belongs among the stars. They want to fight for what you represent. That's insane. I'm just an engineer. You're the human who bonded with an alien princess and exposed an empire's corruption. Like it or not, Mr. Park, you're a hero. Admiral Yuna's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, I think you're being incredibly brave. Or incredibly stupid. Probably both. Good luck. The communication ended. Jiho sat down heavily. This is really happening. I'm going to fight an alien emperor for control of a galactic empire. You don't have to, Hana said. I can find another way. What other way? Let your father win? Let this turn into a long war that kills thousands. Jiho shook his head. I've come this far. Might as well see it through. Over the next 3 days, Jiho prepared for the challenge. Dr. Mirai provided him with advanced human combat armor, augmented to boost his speed and strength. It wouldn't make him equal to a Valerian warrior, but it might keep him alive longer. Human military advisors taught him basic combat techniques, though everyone acknowledged he wouldn't win through superior fighting skill. Your advantage is the same as in the trials, one advisor told him. You're unpredictable. Emperor Taiyang has fought Valarian warriors his whole life. He knows how they move, how they think. You fight like a human. That might throw him off balance. Hana spent hours with Jiho, strengthening their bond. She couldn't fight beside him physically, but through their connection, she could lend him her telepathic abilities, her strategic thinking, her knowledge of her father's fighting style. On the day of the challenge, they transported to the Valarian homeworld. The palace was a massive structure of crystal and light, beautiful and intimidating. Thousands of Valarians had gathered to witness the challenge. Some supported Ha, many supported Taiyang. All wanted to see what would happen when a human faced their emperor in combat. Emperor Taiyang stood waiting in the ceremonial combat arena, wearing traditional warrior armor. He looked larger than life, powerful and confident. His eyes locked onto Jiho with pure contempt. So the human thinks to challenge me, Taiyang said. His voice echoed across the arena. You've gotten lucky so far, creature. But luck ends here. I will destroy you and show the Empire that my daughter's judgment is as flawed as her body. Jiho felt anger spike through him at those words. Through the bond, he felt Hana's anger too, mixed with fear for him. He pushed down both emotions and focused. I'm not here because of luck. I'm here because your daughter deserves better than you. And because you murdered your own wife. That makes you a coward, not an emperor. The crowd reacted with shocked murmurs. Taiyang's expression darkened. Then come and die, human. The combat began. Taiyang moved with frightening speed, telepathic energy crackling around his hands. Jiho barely dodged the first attack, his armor boosting his reflexes. He rolled sideways and came up firing a weapon Dr. Mirai had provided, a disruption pistol designed to interfere with telepathic abilities. Taiyang batted the shots aside with his power. But Jiho noticed a slight hesitation. The weapon was affecting him, if only marginally. Jiho kept moving, staying mobile, using the arena's terrain to his advantage. He couldn't match Taiyang's power, but he could be annoying. Through the bond, Hana fed him information. His father favors his right side. Watch for the overhead strike, he telegraphs it. Keep him moving. His endurance isn't what it was. Jiho followed her guidance, staying defensive, making Taiyang work for every attack. The Emperor grew frustrated, his strikes more aggressive. That's when Jiho saw the opening. Taiyang overextended during a powerful telepathic blast, leaving his left side exposed. Jiho moved before thinking. His armor boosted his speed, and he drove forward, striking Taiyang's side with an electrified baton. The Emperor stumbled, more from surprise than pain. A human had hit him. In front of the entire empire, Taiyang's rage exploded. He lashed out with everything he had, telepathic energy forming into devastating attacks. Jiho's armor took the brunt of it, but he felt his consciousness rattling under the psychic assault. He was going to lose then through the bond. Hana was there. Her presence stabilized him, sharing her own telepathic strength. Jiho felt their minds merge partially, just like in the trial. With her help, he could resist Taiyang's attacks. More than that, he could counter them. The watching crowd gasped as the human began deflecting telepathic strikes, something that should have been impossible. What they didn't understand was that Jiho wasn't doing it alone. He and Hana were fighting together, two minds operating as one through their bond. Taiyang realized it too. Cheating, he spat. You fight with her power, not your own. We're bonded, Jiho said. That makes her power mine and mine hers. That's how it works. He pressed the attack, using Hana's knowledge of her father's weaknesses, her telepathic abilities channeled through him, and his own human unpredictability. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't fair. But it was effective. The fight raged for what felt like hours. Both fighters were exhausted. Jiho's armor was cracked and failing. Taiyang's movements had slowed. Finally, Jiho saw his chance. He feinted left, then dove right, exactly where Hana had told him there was a blind spot in her father's defenses. He struck with everything he had left, the electrified baton connecting with Taiyang's head.